Hi, welcome back to my channel. I did make a video for my 6-month wrap-up, and I just have to edit that because I'd like to include book covers and so forth for that video. But the video I'm making right now is my mid-month wrap-up for the month of July. Now, let me explain to you why I'm making the video. Every single week on Facebook for maybe 9 weeks in a row consecutively, I write a weekly wrap-up, and I post it on my page, Robin Loves Reading, and several of the book-related groups that I belong to. And I'm kind of I'm a very active, very busy reader, and because of such, my numbers are very high, and I'm getting a lot of flack because of it, a lot of it. And one week, because I was so frustrated, I didn't even post, and I think that was the 3rd or 4th week of June. I skipped a week, and then I went back and I continued to post. And so today is Sunday, and this morning I posted the books that I read for this past week, and I think I have gotten maybe 200 comments on what I read. And there are really three camps of people. One is great, it's wonderful, wow, I love it, that's goals, you're my hero, you're a rock star. The second group of people I run into is how did you do it? You must read all the time. And then a third group of the people, I'm sorry, I'm thinking, so if I'm not looking directly at the camera, it's because I'm a little frustrated right now. And the third group of people are the people that are out now calling me a liar. So I thought, I have an avenue to reach people in a different way, and that is this channel. So what I did was I printed 3 things. The first thing I printed was pages from my spreadsheet for all the books I've read thus far this month, notes for the first week of June that I've already posted on Facebook, and notes for the second week, I said June, I meant July, and notes for the second week of this month that I also posted on Facebook. And like I said, each week, if you look at my Facebook, you'll see that I post these little mini reviews. And they don't even incorporate every book that I read in that time frame, just the books that stand out, and occasionally I will put a book that really disappointed me. So since I got some interesting feedback this afternoon, like I said, from the 3 camps of people, I said, you know what, let me make this video and we'll see how or what type of response I will get, and maybe it might even inspire me to continue beyond today. So the way that I'm going to do this video is simply this. I'm not going to count the books that I read today, Sunday, because my weeks always end on Saturday. So I am going to go from the very last day of June until today. And the reason I'm going from the last day of June is because I started those books and finished them as of the beginning of the month. So and then a couple other books that I threw in there are books that I read from June 28th to June 30th. So yes, they're part of June, but the reason that I'm incorporating them in this wrap up is because I go by weeks, and that was the end of the month, the end of June was the beginning of the first week of July, if that makes any sense. And so I just want to show you what I mean. Just if you look at this really briefly, and I hope it shows properly, last week of June and July week 1. So we're going to go with that. So I'm not going, okay, so let me give you the numbers. I should give you those, right? The numbers are basically week 1 of June. Now, hold your hat. Week 1 of July, keep saying June. The week 1 of July was 28 books that I read from June 28th till July 11th, 28 books. And then, for the second week of July, which went from the 11th, which that night, like going past, say, 8 or 9 p.m., from the 11th of July until last night, which was the 18th, so that's exactly 7 days, I read 22 books. So between June 28th and July 18th, I read 50 books. Okay, I wanted to give you those numbers. I don't know yet if I'm going to edit this video, and if I do edit it, I will incorporate maybe screenshots or book covers, but let me think on that. I just may make this kind of a vlog speaking video, and then perhaps just checking. Yeah, I'm sorry, got a notification that was blocking. I wanted to make sure the camera was still running. This might just be more of a vlog video so that I can at least publish this video. And then maybe in future weeks, if I continue to do this, I will incorporate the book covers. So let's just go with it. Well, like I said, that's 50 books. Now, I'm going to cheat in this video by using notes that I write in my notepad on my iPad so that it will spark this conversation as far as what I read. So, the first, like I said, from the 28th of June to the 11th of July, I read 28 books. Now, I mentioned in my own notes, now not related to this video, that in June I kind of fell into a little bit of a reading slump. And I hit that slump for two reasons. Number one, I'm bipolar, so I hit a major depressive phase. The second reason that my reading in June was lower than normal was I had a migraine that was at least 4.5 days was a migraine, and it was a very bad headache for the next day and a half. So I lost a lot of time, not days, but hours in each day that I could not devote to reading because of the depression and the headaches. So just to give you an idea what I mean is, generally I read 65 to 70 even more books a month, but I think in June I read 56. And I know that you're going to say, oh, that's still a huge number, because really it is. But I know me, and I know what days I only read a book or half a book. I know that. So therefore I'm going by what I know I'm capable of if I'm not dealing with major issues like that. So as I stated, at the end of okay, so June was kind of a lower month for me, as I mentioned, but I kind of rose out of the ashes, so to speak, and by the end of the month, I'm reading like I like to read, what standards I set for myself. What I do is not what everybody else does. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to stop looking at my notes for a second to explain something. I read an excessive amount of books, and the question is always why and how. Why is really a moot question, because if it's your favorite hobby or one of your favorite hobbies, that means you enjoy it, and if you enjoy it, you do it. So that's a quick answer to why. How is a huge question every single week on Facebook when I post. How is, number one, I'm homebound, and number two, I'm disabled. Being homebound and disabled means I don't work, I don't punch a clock, I don't report to anybody. Being disabled means that I have a caregiver, and my husband is also very helpful. He does a lot. He does the laundry. He does a lot of the shopping. He does, I don't know, other chores, things that I should be doing but that I cannot do. So that how is part of, those things that I just mentioned kind of makes it a little easier to understand the how. So therefore, what do I have on my hands? I have time on my hands. Time. The time that I have on my hands, I dedicate to the hobbies that I enjoy, which is primarily reading, jigsaw puzzles, which I did kind of go into a freeze with my jigsaw puzzles in June and July, and I hope to get back to them. And sometimes video games, and of late it's Animal Crossing on the Nintendo Switch, and a little bit of TV, but just those are hobbies that I enjoy. So when you have a hobby that you enjoy, what do you do with that hobby? You dedicate time to it, and that's what I do. And in the case of reading, I dedicate my time to reading. Now, in July of this month, I'm averaging a little over 2 books a day. And as a matter of fact, during this past week, it was 3 books a day. And it's not picture books, it's not children's books, and it's not short books. As a matter of fact, I didn't print that part of my spreadsheet, but I do have my phone, And I'm going to grab directly out of my spreadsheet a summary for what I'm speaking of. Now, I'm going to show you something here. The first summary that I will show you, just directly from my spreadsheet, because like I said, right now I'm speaking off the top of my head without notes. If you can see that, oh no, you can't see that. Okay, I don't know how I can show you that. I don't know if I'm going to edit this, so let me tell you what it was. What I just tried to show you, which just will not reflect properly on from the phone to the iPad camera, is the amount of books that I read each month, which is January through July, as of July now. Okay, and as I mentioned, that's 50 books from the 28th of June until yesterday, the 18th. The other stat, which I guess I'm going to have to edit this video, shows you the pages that I read each month. So for July so far, I have read 15,772 pages. And I'm going to, while I'm talking to you, pull up the calculator. I lost the number. What did I say? 15,7. I'm going to make, this is going to be a vlog, so you're just going to have to listen to me chatter. I said 15,772, and the calculator says, so we're talking 18 plus 3, we're talking 21 days, and that averages to 751 days. Oh, you can see this, yay. That is 751 pages a day that I average to read. Okay, there you see it. Okay, why my phone won't show something with a white background, I don't know, because I don't generally do that. Again, the pages that I read in July thus far is 15,772. Divide that by the amount of days thus far, and there you have it. So I am not reading novellas, I am not reading picture books, and I am not reading children's books. And to show you that I'm out of the slump I was in June, I read 20,060 pages. That's it. Well, I shouldn't say that's it. That's the amount of pages I read in June. Right now, I'm already at 15,000, and I think there's 11 days to go. So quite naturally, as you can see, I'm going to surpass June. So that was just a fly-by-night thought that I should share that with you. Now, I'll go back to my notes. Okay, so for the first part of July, of those 28 books that I read, 12 were audiobooks, 15 were digital ARCs, which are advanced reader copies or advanced review copies, however you want to say that, and then 1 print ARC. Okay, now again, I didn't post the previous week. Remember, I said I got a lot of flack, so I didn't feel like posting for a week. I just decided to use screenshots from my iOS app. My iOS photo album, and it shows you what I read. And I guess I'll incorporate those screenshots in this video. I'm gonna go ahead and do some editing. I can see that right now. So the next thing I wrote down when I wanted to give the report of what I read, or the post on what I read, was the fact that I enjoy and participate in several reading challenges on Facebook each month. This month, last month I think I did 5, but this month it's 4. It's Reading Rivalry, The Book It List, Litwits, and Literary Fight Club, or LFC. Those are the 4 challenge groups I'm in this month, and in each group they give certain criteria, and so I pull together a reading list based on what I know I'm going to read, what I have to read for review, what I have to read for blog tours, what series books I want to read, and what criteria fall in to those 4 challenges that I do each month. And in most cases, those challenges overlap as far as criteria. So a book that I read for, say, challenge A also fits a criteria for challenge C, whereas a book I read for challenge B also fits a criteria for challenge D. So my TBRs are very easy to put together. Let's see. Oh, where do I get my books from? I get my books from NetGalley and Edelweiss, but I also get them directly from publishers, authors, and publicists. I don't buy books. I don't have to go to Amazon and buy a book in order to read 20, 30 books a week. I don't have to. I get them handed to me. But because I'm a series fanatic and I'm reading several series, and I do talk about those series in the mid-year wrap-up video that I made, but I haven't edited that video yet, but I do talk about those in that video. So I use Hoopla and Overdrive and Scribd and my Audible subscription to pull together books from series that I want to read. Another thing that I do is, let's say I get a book for review or for a blog tour. The reason I say review or a blog tour, even though a blog tour is a review, is because review just means I'm going to post a review whenever I want to, whereas a blog tour has a scheduled date. So if I want to, if I get a book for review that is, say, number 3 in a series, I will go to, first I go to Overdrive and look at all the libraries. I have a nice library network of 7 or 8 libraries. So I'll go through all the libraries. If I don't find it there, I'll look at Hoopla. And if I don't find it at Hoopla, they'll be Scribd. And if it's not at Scribd, then I get it at Audible. So I get all those books without actually having to run to Amazon and buy them. Now, highlights for the first week of June include Dolores Fawson's 3 books in that series, which I think is going to continue, and that is a Safety Breach, A Threat to His Family, and Settling an Old Score. So those, it's a romantic suspense series and Harlequin intrigue, I believe, and I got the 3rd book in that series, and I think I made an incomplete thought. I got the 3rd book in that series for a blog tour, so I went and grabbed the first 2 books in order to fully be immersed in the book that is for the tour. And the incomplete thought I think I left hanging was, if I get a book for review and it's 3 or 5 or 7 in the series, I will go to all of these places, Hoopla, Overdrive, Scribd, Audible, and get those other books and read those books before I read the one that I'm scheduled for a tour or for a regular review. A lot of, or most book reviewers do not do that, but that's just something that I enjoy doing. Now, some other highlights are The Silent Dolls by Rita Herron, and that's a chilling new book in a new crime fiction series. I also, the first week of July, I read a couple of Amish fiction series that were really good. One is called Romancing Nadine by Amy Lillard. I love this because the couple were in their 60s and they had to deal with the conflicts and things of that nature that came with finding love at that age. And I thought that was so sweet. I did read some cowboy romances in July, and that included Carolyn Brown's 7th book in her Longhorn Canyon series, which was Cowboy Strong. In that first week, I read 3 more J.D. Robb in-depth books, and that's it's great and it's bad because it's bringing me closer and closer to the end of the series, and I know I'm going to miss this series. Eve and Rourke are my absolute favorite couple in any series that I've read thus far. I want to also talk about another book that I read, which is Verity by COLLEEN Hoover. Well, I downloaded this. It came free on Amazon, a bunch of free books right at the beginning of the pandemic. A bunch of authors were giving away their books. So one of the ones I got was Verity, and I never read it, but I did read it this past week. And I read several books, probably since I read that book by COLLEEN Hoover, I've read maybe 30 more books, but you know what? My head is still spinning from Verity. That's how good it was. I had 2 rereads in the first week of July, and that was Nicholas Sparks' The Notebook, and then James Patterson's Suzanne Diary for Nicholas. And I also read a Stephen King book, which I said I would never do, but I needed a book to match a criteria in one of the challenges I was doing, and someone recommended Elevation and said it was different than most of his other works. So I read it, and it was a really good book, so I'm glad I got a chance to read it. And lastly, I read Me Before You by Jojo Moyes, and this book broke my heart into a million pieces. And what I did is I changed my TBR to incorporate the last 2 books, or the other 2 books in that series, which were After You and Still Me, And those are going to be part of my July wrap up. So that's all my notes on the first week of July. And again, that was 28 books from the 20th of June to July 11th. Then if I pick up for, let's see, I got my notes twisted. I just need to find them in the right order. Okay, excuse my shuffling. Okay, this past week, which again started, my week always ends at midnight, or my reading day always ends at midnight. So as of the 11th/12th, going into the wee hours of that morning, I read 22 books until last night before midnight. I'm a stickler for order, okay? And the order is displayed here, which is the day I started the book and the day I read the book. Every time I make a note on when I complete a book, it's always going to be as of midnight of that day. So I may start 2 books, say on the 8th, and not finish them until the 9th at 1 a.m. Well, if I don't finish them until 1 a.m., then it's going to be the 9th. It wouldn't be considered read on the 8th. That's just the way I do it. All right, let's finish this up with talking about week number 2 in July. And this was 22 books. Of these books, 7 were audiobooks and 15 were ebooks. 9 of those ebooks were ARCs for review, and they were from NetGalley or publishers for blog tour reviews. And the other 6 were books that I read either A, because of recommendations, B, because of challenges, and C, because they were part of a series. That's why I had books that were not review titles. The 2 most outstanding books that I read during the second week of July, I'll first tell you about the fiction book, and then I'll tell you about the non-fiction outstanding book. The outstanding fiction book was Winter Garden by Kristen Hanna. This book was for a buddy read, but let me tell you about Kristen Hanna, period. 2 months ago, I was introduced to her writing because I think she was a featured author in one of my challenges. So I read, I think it was Firefly Lane, and then Fly Away, and I read other ones like True Color, Summer, something. I can't think of it, but I read maybe 5 of her books in the last month and a half to 2 months. So I had, Audible had a 2-for-1 series 2 months ago, and Winter Garden was one of the books that I got as a 2-for-1. So Winter Garden was already a book that I was going to read. So when I got my buddy read partner, we kept going back and forth about what kind of genres I enjoy, what kind of genres she enjoyed. And I'm like, well, you know what? I have Winter Garden, and Audible has a program where you can loan a book. So why don't I send you this and we read that? So as it turned out, we decided to go for it. We split the book up into 4 sections. And every time we finished a section by Messenger, we broke down the book. And we did this throughout the 4 segments. And then at the end of the day, she gave the book 4 stars and I gave it 5 stars. And I actually wrote a book review for my channel on this. And a lot of times I do not write book reviews on how can I put this? If a book is not from NetGalley, otherwise a publisher or publicist, or for a blog tour, I generally do not write a review for it on my blog or even Goodreads, simply because I don't have the time. Because if I'm reading 20-something books a week, do you know how many hours I would have to dedicate to writing every single review? So I kind of focus on the requested reviews. I use the word requested. I don't want to say assigned, because this is a hobby. This is not a paid job, even though I'm a professional book reviewer. So Winter Garden, back to Winter Garden, I decided to write a book review for that on my blog, and I'm going to link that in the description below. And my estimation as far as reading this book by Kristen Hanna, is she is indeed going to be in my top favorite authors, and I do plan on decimating her backlist as time moves on. Okay, as I was editing this video, I realized that I left a very important book out of my discussion. So I stopped my editing. I'm making this section and I'm going to insert it in the spot that you see it. And I probably could have just made that video stuck it in here and you wouldn't have known that it was two different videos. But I did have to stick this in this point because of the order in which I'm discussing the books. Now, I had just mentioned that I read two outstanding books this past week. And the second outstanding book is the nonfiction book that I briefly mentioned, and that is White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And the entire title is White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism. I was encouraged to read this book for two reasons. The first reason is because of the current events that are going on in the world right now. And the other one simply was I needed to read a book about activism or social injustice. And that's because of the challenge, one of the challenges that I'm doing for the month of July. So I thought when I saw the challenge criteria about a book about social injustice or activism, I said, well, I'm not going to read any books about that. But then in the back of my mind, I remembered a discussion I had, and I said, wait a minute, White Fragility, let me look that up. So what I did is, instead of looking for it at my library or even Scribd, I got it at Audible so that I could reread it or listen to it again down the line. And I knew going in, even without, and I never even read a blurb on it, just a discussion I had with a couple of people, I knew going in that this was going to be a very important book and one that is worth my while to read a second time. And again, it's called White Fragility. I'm sure that at least some of you have heard about it, and it's an eye-opener for me as a person of color, but it's also an eye-opener for those who are not people of color that make them think. And I like books that make you think. So that's all that I'm going to say at this particular point, and I'll stop this video I'm making now, and I will meld it in with the existing video that I'm working on. All right. Okay, another outstanding book I read was Wrong Alibi by Christina Dodd. This book was eerie, creepy, and gave me the chills. There is an element in this book that put me on the edge of my seat, and I would recommend that you don't read it at night. I'm telling you about it, but don't be disappointed when I tell you this. It won't be released until December 29th. Now, last year I read A Measure of Darkness by Jonathan and Jesse Kellerman, which was the second book in the Clay Edison series. It might be Ellison. I don't know if it's a typo or not on my part. And so I read that book out of order, and it was okay. I only gave it 3.5 stars. Well, I just got Half Moon Bay, which is the third book in the series, for review. So I said, nope, I'm going to go back and read book number 1. And that was Crime Scene. And now I knew a little bit more about Clay, what drove him, what his family life is like, what his perspective as far as his job is concerned. And then I was able to read Half Moon Bay. So I wanted to mention that. And now, if there are more, well, there will be more books in the series, but now because I know Clay as a character, I'll be able to enjoy the other books in the series. Okay, I got Say No More by Karen Rose for a blog tour for the publishing company, the publisher Berkeley. Now, Say No More is the second book in the Sacramento series, so I went through my library, like I mentioned earlier, and I downloaded Say You're Sorry, and I read that, and it was really good. And now I'm prepared to read Say No More, which is in my TBR for it's for next week, and I think there's 6 books ahead of it, so I'll get to it by Wednesday or Thursday. And another book that I wanted to mention that is a standout book to me is Emerald Blaze by Ilona Andrews. And Ilona Andrews is a husband and wife writing team, which is kind of cool. This is an urban fantasy book, and it's the 5th book in the Hidden Legacy series. I don't like fantasy. I don't like YA too much, even though I'm enjoying some YA books now and even some NA books. But this urban fantasy was a category or a criteria, I think, back in January, and that's when I started the Hidden Legacy series. And so even though I'm not the criteria for urban fantasy hasn't come up, now I want to continue to read every book in that series. So I'm kind of glad about that. As I mentioned, I also read Before You by Jojo Moyes at the end of last week. So then this week I read After You and Still Me. And I was really I can't think of the word I want to use. I wasn't totally impressed. Before You was a tearjerker. It was a very, very good book. And then After You was okay, and Still Me was not that great, but I still will say the series is really good because it's kind of a coming of age book, a new A, and it might be my first new A book / series, so my opinion on it isn't the best because I don't read that genre that often. The last thing I'll mention in this video is Someone Listening by Serafina Nova Glass. I have a typo in my notes, but I do remember her name. It is Serafina, and that was another excellent book. Now, those are my highlights, and I'm going to end this video, and I think I'm going to take the time in every book that I mention or statistic that I mention. I will try to put it, nope, wrong way. Okay, I can't tell you where, but I'm going to put it up on, oh, there we go. It's going to be right there. That's where you're going to see a bunch of screenshots. All right, thank you very much for all your time. Let me see how much time. This is a 28-minute video. I hope that we're going to call it a wrap-up / vlog. And if you like it, this is great. And I will sit in my recliner and do this on a weekly basis and talk about the books that I read. And I want to mention one more thing. Please, please accept the fact that I have no reason to make anything up. I'm reading these books from cover to cover. I don't pass, I don't skim, I don't cheat, I don't read the last chapter and call it done. No, I read it from the prologue to the epilogue. If there's an author's note, I read that. If it's acknowledgments, I read those as well. I don't skim read, and I don't speed read. I don't speed read, and I think as a professional book reviewer, speed read would be recommended. I do not do that. I have the time to read. Yes, I have other factors in my life. I still cook from time to time. I still engage myself in some house chores. And my daughter and grandson moved back home, and I take care of him part-time, and he's a 16-month-old active toddler. But despite all of that, and I'm also playing a video game for hours every day, which is Animal Crossing New Horizons, I still love reading, and I'm going to read these books at this level. If I had a job or young children or more household responsibilities, of course I couldn't read this much, but I can. So if you doubt any or have my veracity in anything that I've mentioned thus far, I just wanted to end on that note. All right, thank you very much. I'm really glad that I made this video, and I'm looking forward to going in my room now and editing it and including as much extra stuff as I can. And hope to see you soon. And I also hope that you will see my mid-year wrap-up video as soon as possible. All right then, thank you for your time. Bye-bye.